So today, we're going to dive into a really fascinating and honestly a kind of scary idea from the world of media studies, the magic bullet theory. We're going to break down what it is, why it seems so incredibly real for a while, and why even though it's been totally debunked, it just refuses to go away. All right, let's jump right in.
Let me just start by asking you this. Do you think a piece of media, a news report, a viral video, a commercial, can act like a weapon? Like, can it literally be aimed and fired right into your mind, changing what you believe in an instant, without you even realizing it? It's a pretty wild thought, right? And it's the absolute core of what we're talking about today. And this idea has a name, the magic bullet theory. The imagery is just so powerful, isn't it? The media is the gun, the message is the bullet, and the audience, well, that's us. We're the targets. It also goes by another name, the hypodermic needle theory, which gives you an equally chilling picture. An idea being literally injected straight into our collective bloodstream.
So whether you're talking about a bullet or a syringe, both metaphors are pointing to the exact same kind of terrifying concept, that the message is impossible to resist. The whole theory assumes that the audience is completely passive, that we can't fight back. The message goes in, and boom, the effect is immediate and overwhelming. You have basically no defense.
Okay, so this theory is built on a few really big, really shaky assumptions. First, that we, the audience, are just sitting ducks. Second, and this is a big one, that every single person who sees or hears a message is going to react in the exact same way. And finally, that these effects happen instantly and are super powerful. Now, if you accept all of that, the conclusion is kind of unavoidable. The media can basically control society.
Now, I know what you're thinking. This sounds way too simple for today's world. But for a long time, this theory felt incredibly real to a lot of people. And to get why, we need to hop in a time machine and go back to the early 20th century, when mass media was this brand new world-changing force.
It really was the perfect storm. Think about it. You've got the rise of radio and movies, brand new technologies that, for the first time ever, could send one message to millions of people all at the same time. This was a total game changer. On top of that, World War I had just shown everyone the shocking power of mass propaganda. And then, in 1938, one single radio broadcast seemed to prove everybody's biggest fears right.
And yeah, this was the big one. The classic proof. Orson Welles' radio drama, The War of the Worlds. The very next day, the newspapers were screaming with these wild headlines about mass panic, people supposedly fleeing their homes because they really believed Martians were invading. For anyone who believed in the magic bullet theory, this was it. This was the smoking gun. So for years, that War of the Worlds story was Exhibit A for the awesome power of the media. But, eventually researchers started to dig a little deeper. They started asking a really important question. Is it actually that simple? What happens when you stop telling stories and start actually testing the theory?
Let's just circle back to that core idea one more time just to be super clear. Mass media has direct, immediate, and uniform effects on a passive audience. It sounds so clean, right? So definitive? But as we all know, the real world is almost never that neat and tidy.
And this right here is the big turning point in the whole story. When actual scientists moved past the spooky anecdotes and started studying how people really engage with media, did the evidence back up the theory? What do you think?
The answer, as it turns out, was a massive, resounding nope. Not even close. The big breakthrough came from a researcher named Paul Lazarsfeld. Back in 1940, he was studying the U.S. presidential election, and he went in fully expecting to find that radio and newspapers were deciding the vote. But what he found instead just blew that idea out of the water. People were way more influenced by talking to their family, their friends, their coworkers. The media wasn't a magic bullet at all.
So this huge discovery led to a completely new model, something called the two-step flow theory. And the idea here is that media messages don't just hit everybody all at once like a shotgun blast. No, first, they reach these influential people that researchers called opinion leaders. The people in your life who are always up on the news, the ones whose take you trust. Then, those opinion leaders interpret the messages and pass them along through their own social networks. It's not a direct shot, it's more like a ricochet.
And folks, this was a revolution in media studies. The whole focus shifted away from this all-powerful media and onto a much more powerful audience. This was really the beginning of the modern view, a view where we, the audience, aren't just passive targets. We're active participants in the whole process.
I mean, the shift in thinking here is just night and day.
We went from this old view of the audience as passive sponges, just soaking up whatever the media throws at us, to a new view of the audience as active, critical thinkers who filter, who question, and who interpret everything we see and hear.
This table really spells out the whole evolution. The magic bullet theory saw media power as like absolute, with the power to completely change your mind. Today's view, it's much more moderate, it's conditional. And check out this last part, because it's the absolute key. The main effect of media isn't actually changing our minds, but reinforcing what we already believe. That is a massive, massive difference.
So let's be perfectly clear. In academic circles, the magic bullet theory has been dead and buried for decades. It's just way too simple. So why on earth are we still talking about it? Well, because this wrong idea has a surprisingly stubborn ghost that still haunts us.
You see the fingerprints of this old theory everywhere, even today. Think about it. Every time there's a moral panic about a new technology, like video games cause violence, that's the magic bullet logic at work. You hear it in the fears that fake news can single-handedly swing an election, or the idea that one super clever ad can brainwash millions. It's a simple gut-level fear, and it's really hard to shake.
So while the theory itself might be dead in the textbooks, its ghost is very much alive and well, haunting pretty much every public debate we have about the power of media. It's this potent reminder that even when we think of ourselves as smart, critical consumers of information, there's a part of us that still worries about being a passive target. And that's a tension we all live with every single day in this crazy, media-saturated world of ours.